Figma shortcut workflows, let's go. So before we begin, I am currently inside of Figma. Let me increase my scale just a little bit. I'm selecting the URL bar and hitting Command on my keyboard and pressing plus. If you're on Windows, that's Control and plus. That just made my interface a little bit bigger. There we go. You'll notice here in Figma across the top is the main toolbar. You see all of the tools that we have to access here. When we hover over those tools, you're going to see the respective shortcut keys show up in that little modal that pops up under when I hover. So as I hover over these, you can see those shortcuts. The shortcut that I'm using most often is the V key. That's the move tool. That's going to give me this little arrow that pops up. Over here on the left, you'll see that I have pages. These pages contain the different slides and the different designs that I'm working with to teach you all today all about those shortcuts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to navigate from this current page, right? This current page that has all of these slides. I'm going to navigate into that keyboard shortcuts page. Here we go. And this is going to be the introduction, and this is going to be your introduction to Figma if you haven't yet used the keyboard pane. So I'm going to show you what this is all about. If you look at the bottom right of your Figma window, you'll see a little help and resources tab. And under there, there's an option called keyboard shortcuts. And you'll also find a keyboard shortcut for the keyboard shortcuts. This is something I absolutely love. When I click that and I turn that on, what you're going to see down here is a little pane that's going to introduce you to the various shortcuts. These are keyboard buttons that you can press to trigger a function or an action in Figma that you may want to perform. This is going to allow you to save time as you're working. But the one reason why I absolutely love the keyboard shortcuts pane is it helps me understand what functions I can perform in Figma. If you're coming from another design tool and you're familiar with functions in that design tool, this will help you see some of the things that you can currently do in Figma. So when I click on the tools tab, I have this arrangement of different tools that I can perform and their respective shortcuts. You'll notice that as I move through here, some of these are highlighted and some of them are not. This is because it behaves almost like a little game. You'll notice that my pixel previews turned off. So I'm going to trigger those shortcut keys to turn that on, and you'll see that enabled. So when I press Shift Command P, right? I do that and it's now highlighted. So it lets me know what shortcuts I've used and which shortcuts I haven't used. So in and of itself, it becomes this little learning tool that as I move through, I can see things that are available. So opening my layers panel is going to be the option, right? And when I hover over it, let's say I'm unfamiliar with that key. When I hover over, it's going to show option and or alt. So alt and one. And once I trigger it, I can see that I perform that action. Now, this is important because depending on what platform you are working on, you will see your respective shortcut keys. Now, if you're joining in from, let's say, France or Spain, and your keyboard shortcuts are inaccessible, right? You're like, man, I can't use that backslash. Miggy, why are you trying to get me to use that backslash? You can head on over to this layout panel. And in this layout panel, you'll see the ability to swap out a different keyboard layout. So I'm currently in US QWERTY, but you could change it to Chinese, Danish, Finnish, French AZERTY, German QWERTZ, and you can then see the keyboard shortcuts that are more easier for you to trigger. Okay, so I'm going to respect that. And so then this way, if I'm performing shortcuts in this workshop today, remember, I'm in the US, I'm using the QWERTY keyboard. Unfortunately, that's the only one that I have currently. So if you find a shortcut that you can't perform, switch that keyboard layout and see what it is for you. Okay, so here too, if you ever want to trigger that without going down to that little help and resources menu, you can hit Control, Shift, and question mark, right? And it'll turn it on and it'll turn it off. This is what's referred to as a toggle. So pressing it once or twice, it'll turn it on and off. All right. So next up, we're going to talk about navigating the Figma space. Okay. And when we're talking about navigating the Figma space, there's first a few keyboard shortcuts are just a few things I want y'all to think about. right? You'll notice that I'm moving around this canvas. I'm going to zoom all the way out. I'm going to zoom all the way in. I navigate to the left. I navigate to the right. For some, that's pretty commonplace, right? They've worked in design tools. They know how to move around the canvas. For some of you, it might be brand new. It's a new concept. So think about that as you're working. If you're on a touchpad, I have a touchpad here. If I use a scroll gesture for kind of zooming in or zooming out, you can see that I'm pinch gesturing, zooming in and zooming out, and I can easily just move around that touchpad. So if you're tuning in, you're working on a laptop, that's going to seem pretty commonplace to you. And in a little bit, I'm going to show you how to change some of those preferences to be a little bit better for you. Okay, so we're in Figma. The thing that I always preach is that in Figma, one of the first things that you create is a frame. When you're in Figma, you're there to design things, whether it's going to be an app, whether you're designing slides. A frame is the main container that you're going to work with. So these objects that I have here that contain my slides, they are frames, and you're going to want to navigate them. You want to move through them in a way that's going to be beneficial for you. So first off, let's create a frame. The frame is up here. You'll see when I hover over it in the region tools, it is the letter F. I'm going to press and draw a frame. So there's a frame. I'm going to make it an iPhone 14 frame. And once again, I'll show you exactly what I did for those of you that are brand new to Figma. I'm on my canvas. I press the F key, right? F key is up here, and I draw this frame. And here you can see on the right with the frame selected, I have the options over here on the right to manipulate them. I could change that to a different device type, and I'm going to make a few copies of this, right? So I can copy, Command C, Command V. If you're on Windows, Control C, Control V, and I have a few of those. Now I want to navigate between them. I'm going to use these shortcut keys. I'm going to use N and Shift N. So here, I'm going to press N. I'm going to navigate each frame. I can go back and forward. So let's see this. I'm just going to add some text. I'm going to add the number 1 here. All right, so I got the number 1. I have the number 2. And I have the number 3. I'm just copy pasting and placing these in here just so I can show you how these are navigating. So here, when I press N, right, I'm navigating between those frames. So N goes forward, Shift N goes back. Now, where this becomes super helpful is if you are working with a bunch of frames. The way that this works, it goes from the top left to the bottom right. You'll notice over here in my pages panel, I have another page called navigating frames. When I select that first frame, here it's selected, and I press N, it's zooming and going to that next frame. So as I press the N key, it's going to keep looping top left to bottom right. So however my frames are arranged on my canvas, each of these, think of them as their own slide or their own container for creating artwork. It's going to let you navigate those. So now I'm going to head back on. And once again, so we have next frame and previous frame. If you're on a keyboard and you have the function key readily available, and let's say you want something that's a little bit more intuitive, you can also press the function key and press right or function left, function right or function left. So if you have the function key on your keyboard, that behaves in a very similar way, allowing you to navigate between those frames. Okay. Next up, navigating pages. So we've already introduced you to the concept of pages. You're going to see my pages over here on the left-hand side. Sometimes you're going to be working on different groupings of designs. You're going to be having prototypes in certain pages. You're going to have your notes in certain pages. You're going to have your process in a different page. You'll see here in our first page, we have our intro slides. In our second page, we have the main content. Then we have some examples here. So to navigate these pages, I can use the page up key, and it'll just navigate through all of those pages. Notice this little check mark here on the left-hand side. As I press page up, It's navigating those pages, page down. It's navigating those pages. I know folks who've been using Figma for years and they don't know that shortcut. If you don't have the page up and page down keys on your keyboard, you can also press function up. So function, the FN key up, the up arrow, and function down, the down arrow. And that'll let you easily go from page to page to page. And I know it seems pretty simple, but it'll save you tons of mouse miles as you're navigating those pages. Next up isn't necessarily a shortcut key, but it's one thing that I absolutely love doing in Figma and I love to show people. You'll notice that as we're adding things to our canvas, when I add designs, when I draw shapes and I add, let's say I'm going to add a rectangle here to my page. I'm going to make that a red rectangle, right? I'm going to copy and paste. Oops. Going to copy and paste that rectangle. And now I have a blue rectangle. So these are two objects. They're here on my canvas in the left-hand side. Now the shortcut key, the shortcut that I'm going to show you all is just double clicking on that object to go right to it. So you'll notice I'm double clicking on that rectangle. I'm double clicking on the rectangle. I'm double clicking on the rectangle. And you can see I'm going to those respective slots. There we go. I'm able to navigate them in that way. So here, when I select this frame, I want you all, especially if you're brand new to Figma, to see the relationship of your frame to its place in the layers. So here you can see as I double click on it, it'll zoom directly to that frame. I'm all the way zoomed out. Where am I? I don't know. Oh, hey, navigating frame. I'm going to double click on it. It's going to zoom right to it. So this little action can save you a ton of time. So think about as you're working in Figma, how you're navigating your space and what you can do to make that a bit more intuitive or speed up that process a little bit. Next, we're going to talk about quick actions. If you've visited one of my workshops before, we've talked about quick actions. Quick actions is another one of those things that I like to highlight to beginners, and I come across the Figma expert once in a while who've never heard of it before. If you are in Figma and you look at the top left area of this page, you're going to see this little F menu. I'm going to click on that drop down, and in that drop down, you're actually going to see a bunch of different file menus, right? Here's a file menu, here's an edit menu, here's a view menu. All of these menus are here, but just above that is this quick actions option. What the quick actions option does, it's very similar to like that keyboard shortcut pane, where it's like it gives you access to all of the functions and features within Figma, but brings it to you in a more consumable way. So quick actions. If I press, this is, let me make sure this is right. Here we go. I actually undid this one. It should be / or P, control / or P. So I might have to adjust that if you've downloaded the file. My apologies on that one. So the quick actions command menu is going to be Command P, right? So when I hit Command P, you are going to see this little search menus commands. So once again, if you're following along in the file, I apologize. I think I might have mistyped that. Big apologies there. But if you hit Command / or if you're on an international keyboard, hit Command P, you're going to see this little search. Now, what that search does is as you type things out, right? As you type things out, you can perform a function. So let's say you forget a keyboard shortcut, right? You forget the keyboard shortcut for rectangle. I'm going to hit Command P. Once again, if you're on Windows, it's going to be the control key. So if you're on Apple, it's going to be Command key. If you're on Windows, control key. If you're wondering why everything looks so pixelated, that's because I did the pixel preview. I don't want pixel preview turned on. I turned that off. That makes our file look a little bit better. Okay, so Command / brings up this menu, and I type in show pixel. If I could type better, that'd be better. Show pixel grid, show pixel preview. That show pixel preview makes my file look pixelated. We're going to undo that, and now my file looks nice and crisp. Other commands that you can trigger right? These snap commands. So if you are working in Figma, right, there's this underlying grid that sits with everything, and you can change your snap options. So I hit command forward slash and I type in snap. So I could turn snapping the pixel grid on and off. I could snap to geometry on and off and snap to objects. In a moment, I'm going to show you a little window that explains the difference between all three. But basically, that quick actions menu, you hit command forward slash or command P and you type in what you're looking for. Let's say you want to find those keyboard shortcuts, KEY, keyboard shortcuts, press enter, there they are. So the quick actions preview can be found over here. There's the shortcut for it. I use it all the time to change my nudge setting. So I type in nudge amount. There you go. You see nudge. I click nudge amount and it brings up this window that lets me determine the amount of space that any object that I create in Figma. If I create a rectangle, I can have my small nudge be 0.5, it moves by a half a pixel, or I can have it move by 8 pixels when I press shift. Let's try that out. So if I have a rectangle here, let's make that rectangle red, and I want to change my nudge amount. When I use my little arrow key, it's moving very subtly, right? It's just kind of moving a little bit. Now I'm going to hit Command P. I'm going to change my nudge amount, and I'm going to change the small nudge to 20. I'm going to change my big nudge to 240, right? Depends on the scale that you're working at. I'm going to press enter. Now you'll notice when I move it with my arrow keys, it's actually moving by 20 pixels. So when I select my rectangle and I look at its X position, I'm going to see that X position move by a value of 20. And when I hold the shift key and move it, it's moving by a lot. So one way that you can learn how to kind of trigger these, right? Command forward slash nudge amount, there we go. And I can change those values. I'm going to change my small nudge back to 1. I'm going to change my big nudge back to 8. And there you go. So let's say we've been in this situation before. I'm already on this frame. I want to navigate over to my next frame. What was the keyboard shortcut for that? Oh, it was N. That's right. I press N. Here we go. I'm on my next slide. Thank you, Delia. Absolutely right. You got it. You were the first person. So here we go. Next, we're going to talk about preferences in Figma. I feel like this is something that we don't really address in our workshops. This is something that, folks kind of discover on their own, especially if you're coming from another, let's say design tool. Let's say, you're in Figma and something doesn't work the way that you want it to. There's actually all of these preferences that are kind of hidden in their menus. Some of them have keyboard actions associated with them and some don't. And remember, this is all about workflows, this workshop today. So thinking about how you work and how to make Figma work a little bit better for you. So when I come over here to the Figma menu, I'm going to come down here to preferences, and you're going to see different options that treat Figma the way that you may prefer for it to work or not. So right here, keep tool selected after use. If you're using a tool like a pen tool, if you're using a tool like a rectangle tool, and you want to keep it selected, you can enable that, right? Or you could choose not to have that. Right here, highlight layers on hover. So if you don't want layers to have a subtle highlight around them, you can turn that on or off. Okay. Rename duplicated layers. Some of these actions. So if you're just learning how to use a design tool, some of these actions you'll think about and you're like, wait, does this help me? Or by turning this off, can that be better for how I work and how you work? So you'll notice here, flip objects when resizing. Let's kind of talk about this one. I'm going to turn that on and let's see what that's all about. So here, I'm just going to create an arrow, and don't worry about the pencil if you're unfamiliar with it. We'll talk about it in a minute. So here we go. I have an object. Now, when I'm resizing it, when I go over that sort of vertical axis in the middle, notice that it flips over on the left, right? Let's say I like that, but let's say I'm working and that happens a lot and that's really annoying. So I can head on over to that preferences pane and I can turn that off. Flip objects while resizing. Let's take that off. Now, when I'm resizing it, it keeps the object exactly as it was. Now, I know that this was a big pain point for a lot of people. Let's say, I know Alex is like, wow, because I've seen Alex, we've worked on slides together, giving presentations. And, sometimes it just happens. You're resizing something a little bit and then it flips over. So here, let's change that setting. Let's go to preferences, flip objects while resizing. And let's say, yeah, I do want it to flip over. Now, if you're thinking about that, like, well, how would I flip this otherwise? I have two keyboard shortcuts for you, Shift H and Shift V. Shift H will just flip it horizontally, right? So think Shift H for horizontal or Shift V for vertical, right? So right here, Shift V will flip that vertically. So if you want to have that flip objects while resizing turned off, but you still want to flip objects, Shift V, Shift H. There you go. Yes, now the arrows can twerk more smoothly. There we go. Got my twerking arrow there. For those of you that know, you know. All right. So there's preferences on the left. Okay. So when I come over here on the left-hand side, there's these preferences, right? Control click opens right click menu. So that means when you control click on a Mac, it's pretty common. You can have right click menus come up. Right now, when I like control click, it doesn't bring up the right click menu. So you can have that go. So these are little options that I know can really help folks out. Use scroll wheel when zooming. So thinking about how you're navigating your page, that can really help out. This is a new one. I kind of like this right click and drag to pan. So I'll show you this. When I right click and I drag, instead of having to press the space bar, I can just right click and drag my file. So once again, a callback to earlier in the workshop when we were thinking about navigating Figma, you can change the behavior of how the interface works for you in this preferences menu. I'm going to show you one more menu. So that is on the left-hand side. Go down here to preferences. Those are the options. Over here in the right, you'll notice there's another set of options. I'll show you exactly where they are. These are under the zoom menu, and you'll see, okay, we got zoom in, zoom out, zoom to fit, zoom to 50%, zoom to 100, zoom to 200. But under that, you'll see we have those pixel grid options. We have the snap to pixel grid options, right? And we have a few others. We have outlines, rulers, and layout grids, all of which we're going to talk about in just a little bit. First off, outlines. So outline mode in Figma when you're designing. So I'm going to show you this really quick. You'll see here, there's this outlines area in this preferences, and you'll see the show outlines shortcut. This shortcut may vary depending on your settings. So right now for me, it's Shift O. When I press Shift O, I enter into this mode that lets me see the underpinnings of this file. Now this graphic, I'm going to press Shift O once again, is a little eye graphic, and it contains different layers and how it's created. I'll show you how it's created just right here. See a little bit of demo in here. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to take an ellipse, right? I'm going to make that ellipse. Let's make it black. There we go. And I'm going to duplicate this. I'm going to hold down the Option key. If you're on Windows, it's going to be the Alt key. I'm going to drag that down. So we have two ellipses. Now, what we want to do is we want to capture the intersection of those ellipses. So once again, let's start over again. I come over here, I choose an ellipse, I hold down the Shift key, I draw that ellipse. Let's make it black by coming over here on the right, changing that property. I'm going to hold down the Option key. It's going to be the Alt key if you are on Windows to just make a copy of that. I'm going to drag this down. Now you'll see when I hover over them, there are this overlapped area to make it like an eye graphic. I'm going to select both of them here. And for those of you that are unfamiliar, these are the Boolean options. What the Boolean options let you do is either merge shapes, cut shapes out from other shapes, or intersect those shapes. So I'm going to intersect these shapes right now, and it's basically going to make that eye shape. Now, what that does is over here in the layers panel, I can see that intersection made up of those two ellipses. Now, the reason I bring this up when talking about outline mode is that if you want to have better access of creating or editing this, when we press Shift O to go into outline mode, I can see those other pieces and more easily change how that intersection takes place. Now I press Shift O again, and you can see it's off to the left. Shift O, I'm back in that X-ray mode that lets me have greater control over the creation of that graphic. Let's press Shift O again, and now we can see the resulting graphic. Let's also begin to cut out the center of the eye. I'm going to create another ellipse here. I'm going to draw that ellipse. Let's just draw it out over here on the left. There is my ellipse. Here it is. And for this ellipse, I'm going to make this bright green just so I can kind of see it a little bit better. And what I want is I actually want the stroke of that shape, right? I want the stroke of that shape. I don't just want the fill. And here's another great shortcut. We're going to swap the fill and the stroke. We're going to swap them. So Shift X swaps the fill and the stroke. I'll show you that one more time. Let's start over. We're going to grab a circle. I'm going to hold down the Shift key. I'm going to drag that circle out. I'm going to move this circle over to the eye. You'll notice that as we're here, we're able to snap it to the center. I want to swap the fill and the stroke. Let's make it green so it's more apparent and y'all can see that a little bit better. Now, I'm going to press Shift and X and it swaps the fill and the stroke. You can see now the stroke is what is enabled. You can see the stroke is only a value of 1 that's very thin. So I can click and drag and make that thicker. Now, what I want to do is I want to subtract that stroke from this object that we have here. Once again, we could take a look at our layers panel and we could see that that's above the other object. Selecting them both, click, drag, select them both, and now we're going to choose subtract selection, right? So Shift X swapped the fill and the stroke. We selected those two objects. We're going to go up to that Boolean right here, and we're going to subtract the selection. And what that did was it selected that from the resulting object. We can take a look at it over here, right? So there's that cutout. Here's the intersection. Now, back to outline mode and how outline mode is helpful. When I press Shift O for outline mode, I can see the underpinnings of this all, right? I can move this shape more easily and see how it's kind of its relationship with those other shapes. I can make those adjustments. I can move this down. I can press Shift O. I can see how that's working, right? Shift O, I have greater access to those things. So Shift O acts as this X-ray view, and there's other options here. So let's say we also want to include our object bounds, right? I can see the bounds of this object that's resulting from the intersection and the subtraction. You can see as I move this object around, there we go. I'm going to move that over to the left, Shift O, and we're out of it. We can see how that looks. And this is our shape. Now, Shift O, once again, here in the preferences outlines, and we can, turn that off. So Shift O isn't going to work for you. You can also press Command Y, or if you take a look on the right hand side, you go to outlines, you will see the shortcut key that is set up for you. The preferences panel, right? I'm actually using my old shortcuts for outlines. So let me disable that, right? I'm stuck in my ways a little bit. So now let's see what's the outline. It's going to be Shift Command O for you. So I've been using Figma for a while, so I was using my old outlines. I'm sorry I overemphasized Shift O, but if you're using the new shortcut, it's going to be Shift Command O. So Shift Command O or Shift. I don't use it because it brings up my Octa. That's why. You can also hit Command Y, and that will turn that on for you. There you go. Shift Command O. Awesome. Once again, that's why I'm highlighting in this workshop the preferences, right? And the preferences over here. So this has to do with like layout and working. Rulers and grid, this is great, especially if you're coming from another design tool. Let's say you want to pull up your rulers, press Shift R. Here's your rulers. You see them across the top. Cool thing about your rulers, when I drag it, it shows me the value as I'm dragging it. And the second that I go inside of a frame, it swaps the value relative to the inside of the frame. So if you think about your canvas as being a very large XY grid and your canvas and your frames being little XY grids of their own, now I can actually see the value on top as I move this over and as I bring this in. So if I'm aligning things with guides, pressing Shift R will turn that on and turn that off. And if you wish, you can right click and you can remove a guide, and you can right click and you can remove a guide. So I can bring this in. I can bring this in. Oops. And I can remove all vertical guides, or I can remove all horizontal guides. So when you right click on your rulers themselves, you can see hide rulers. There's a shortcut. You can also remove those guides, and you can remove all the horizontal guides as well. Next up, grid. When I press Shift G, it'll turn on my grid. Shift G will then also turn off my grid. A grid can be set over here in the right. So right now you can see I have a 12 column, 6 row grid. I could turn those off, and I can add a new layout grid. Here I can change those values. So I could set this instead of a complete grid. I can make that go larger, or I can reduce it to columns. And if I don't want to see my grid anymore as I'm working, I could press Shift G to toggle that on and off. So wanted to highlight that. We talked about snapping previously. So once again, we're going to remind you the quick actions menu, Command P or Command /. I'm going to type in snap, and we have these options: snap to pixel grid, snap to geometry, snap to objects. I mentioned I'm going to explain the difference. Snap to geometry is only used in vector edit mode, which we're going to cover in just a little bit. It's going to allow you to drag vector points to align to other vector points. Snap to objects aligns the sensors of the outermost points to different objects. And to the pixel grid, it looks at the pixel grid that's kind of underlying in Figma and make sure that any object that you have is snapping to a whole value. So if I draw a rectangle here, you'll notice that as I move this rectangle along, right, it's at 536. All of these values are nice whole numbers. When I turn snap to pixel grid off, I can move this around, and you'll notice that the values include decimal points. So as I move this around, I'm free floating this box everywhere on my canvas. However, if I want it to be precise and always land on a whole pixel, I can turn that back on. Command / snap to pixel grid. It's going to remember where I just was. I turn that back on. And now when I move the object around the page, it's going to be on a whole pixel. Cool. So I told you there's going to be a lot of info in this. I'm going to press the N key to navigate to my next one. And this is where we're actually going to talk about designing on the canvas, right? So pretty obvious thing here, the R key, drawing rectangles. We often joke in the UX product design field that all we do all day is draw rectangles. When you press the R key, you can draw those rectangles out. When you hover over the rectangle, you could change the radius of those corners. So you can make that into a pill, or if I scale this down, it actually makes it into a little circle. I can release those radii. Now, once again, when you select that rectangle, you look over here in the right-hand panel, and you can control those properties here as well. And if you wish, you can control those corner radii on an individualistic basis. So I can control those there. Here we go. But let me drag this one up as well. There we go. There you go. I was just dragging it in the wrong direction. So drawing rectangles, kind of great. So next thing, we mentioned as well adding ellipses, the O key. When you hold down the shift key, you could draw it directly from the top left hand corner. But if you press the option key, also the alt key on Windows, right? Option or alt, you can draw it from the center. So I'll show you that one more time. Let's move this shortcut key over. I'm going to press the O key. I draw a circle. It's coming from the top left. But if I want it to scale from the center, shift and option or alt key, and there we go. I can draw it out from that center point. So even as you're working, if you want to resize this from the center, hold down the shift and the option key, and you can drag it out from the center as well. All right, the pen tool. So many of you are coming from other design applications. Figma is a vector design tool. And when I press the P key, you'll pull up the pencil. Pencil can also be found up here in the top area. And as I draw and I'm holding down the shift key, I can draw nice straight lines. And you'll even see that the alignment here, right? We're aligning to those points. I can easily draw out custom shapes. When you are drawing with the pen tool, you are in its own little special mode, right? So you'll see up here, there's a different tool set. And when you're done, you can exit and then you're just back on the canvas again. To enter into the pen tool drawing, you can double click. Now, when you're working with the pen tool, there's certain modifiers that you can work with. So the bend tool allows that when you're working with like a shape, right? So I'm just kind of creating a little shape here. When I hold down the option key, I can bend the graphics, right? So I can bend those out. That's looking great. I can also command click on all of those points to reset them back to angles. So I can click, click, right? So I can choose whether or not I want that to be an angle or a curve. So holding that command key or the control key on Windows can release those points and make a more organic object. And I can press Shift X and we can get that shape, right? Shift X, we go back to the lines. And when I hit that command key, I can click and reset all of those handles like that. So if you have a circle, right? Shift X, swap the fill in the stroke. Let's make that stroke a little bit bigger. Let's make that change the color of that. We can change the circle also to align to the center there. Now, when I double click inside of it, we're back in that pencil mode. So now when I hold the command key, I can click and change them all back to angles. And if I do that again, if I go over those points, it's going to make it a circle again. So it's not that it's changing the radius of those corners, it's actually releasing the Bezier handles in a way that is more natural and attempting to create a desired curve. So here we go. So once again, I can easily create those out. Now, this is handy for, let's say you want to draw a map icon. I do this all the time. I love drawing map icons. So I can start here. I can double click, hit the command key, click on that point right there. I made that an edge. I hold down the shift key and I can move that down. And look at that. We have the basic outline of a map point tool. Now I can press the O key. I can draw a little circle. And we've already learned that we can subtract out this little circle from that shape. I'm going to select them together and subtract it. And now we have a nice little map icon. Let's make that red. Okay, so once again, we're drawing with the vector tools in Figma. I'll cover these again. Let me just move this down and to the left. So when you press the P key, right, I'm able to draw lines. And if I want to, if I press the P key and I hold down the shift key, I can also drag my lines out. It'll keep it at nice little angles. right? So I can kind of draw out more organic shapes using the Bezier curves. Remember the command key or the control key on Windows to angle all of those points back out to their original points. Press the escape key to lose that. There we go. Press the V key to move that. There we go. So we're creating a shape here. Now, thank you. Yeah, I love Shift X. Shift X is such a lifesaver. I want to show everybody Shift X. Same thing works in other design vector tools. And so you can give that a try there as well. So here too, the Bezier handle tool. Um, Notice that when I hit command, I'm releasing these Bezier handles. The Bezier handles help determine how the curves are being made. Now, if I want to change the relationship of them, you'll notice that right now, the behavior of this handle, this is for you deep vector design nerds out there. You'll see that there's mirroring angles, right? Or I can make it that there's no mirroring and I can break it. So I could show you how to do that with the shortcut key. I can hold command and option and I can break how that handle works. Or I can click again, holding both, right? So when I hold command and option, you'll see the cursor change to what is also known as the convert anchor point tool. And that allows you to have more custom control over your curves. So if you've come from Adobe Illustrator or other like Affinity Designer and you're like, oh, I can't do that in Figma, you absolutely can. So when you are in pen editing tool mode, press command and option, and it'll change your cursor when you move over those points to the convert anchor point tool. Okay, pencil tool. A lot of people sleep on the pencil tool. Pencil tool is amazing. Press Shift P and you can just draw in Figma. And it's drawing little vector shapes, right? So you can kind of like, I'm going to draw pizza here. You know, I like to draw pizza. This is a very bad pizza, but sometimes you just need to draw in Figma and get an idea down. Now, what's really cool about the pencil tool is it's aware if you're drawing on a black background. So if I draw in here, right, it's automatically going to change my color to white. Over here, it's automatically going to change it to black. Over here, it's going to change it to white. So it's aware of where you're drawing and attempting to do better by you. And if you look over here, when you enter the pencil tool, you have your own options for it, right? So you have these different strokes. You can change how that pencil draws. So here we go. Somebody said black and white. It's going to choose like because it can't change the vector line across them both. So somebody asked if you have these side by side, right? How does that behave? It's going to pick the first one that you're drawing on. So it's going to start black and it's not going to carry over there because it's only one vector line. So just be mindful of that. This is nested inside of this. This is over this frame. So it's the starting frame that it's coming from. Okay, this is a big one, placing images. I like to talk about placing images in Figma. And basically, when you draw out shapes, so I'm just going to delete those. We're going to start off with some new shapes. I'm going to press the R key. I'm going to draw on a rectangle. I'm going to press Command D, right? That's going to give me another rectangle, or Control D, right? Command D, I just duplicated another rectangle. Command D, I just duplicated another rectangle. I'm going to place images or media. Now, I'm not going to neglect the quick actions menu, right? Command P, place. So place image or video, or Shift Command K. I actually, because I place so much imagery into my designs, I've memorized this shortcut. You don't need to memorize a shortcut. If anything, just use quick actions, place, and press enter. It's going to bring up a dialog asking you to grab an image from your OS. So I'm currently in my documents folder. I'm going to grab a photo of coffee pictures, right? And now you're going to see this UI that's going to allow me to either click and place photos directly into those shapes. I can click and draw the photo onto the canvas, or I could just click and it'll place the photo at its full size. I'll show you all that one more time. Let me select these and I'm going to replace them with a color and just start those over again. So Command Shift K, we're going to place photos from our desktop. I'm going to select 4 photos using the file browser on my machine. I don't know if that's in the screen share, but you'll see that my cursor has changed to an image with a little bubble that says the number 4. So click, 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 right? Click and drag, right? And I can just bring that right onto the canvas. Any shape that you have, you'll notice that the image is now a fill on that shape. If you want to change how it is cropped in there, just command double or option double click or alt double click if you're on Windows, and you could change that crop and how that works. Show you one more time. Command Shift K pulls up the file browser. We pick an image. The image gets loaded into our cursor. We click on the shape that we want to place it. Now, if we want to modify how it is cropped, I'm going to hold down the option or the alt key and double click. And now I can crop it around. And there we go. So we're running a little short on time, but one thing I do want to make sure that we cover today is multi-edit. Multi-edit allows you to edit objects across multiple frames at the same time. Oh, this is option. It should be option. I'm so sorry. I'm going to update this. Option, Command A. And what that does is, let's say you have 3 frames and you have similar objects across those frames. I'm even going to move these down. I'm going to move these up. I want to select this object across all of those frames. Command Option A, it selects them all. When I move them, they all move in unison. When I rotate them, they all rotate together. They're all rotating relative to their position. Let's say this one is larger, but I still want to select all of those objects. Command Option A, multi-edit, they're all selected. I can rotate them. I can scale them. Let's say I want to select both this blue and this yellow one across those frames. Same thing, Option Command A. They're all selected. I can rotate them. I can scale them. If I want to align them all to the same location, let's Shift Command A. They're all selected. Come over here. I can align them to the bottom right. Let's say I don't want them to be aligned to themselves. You see how when I do that, I align them to themselves. Let's hit Delia's favorite undo. There we go. Undo, undo. And now what we're going to do, I'm going to hold down the Shift key. I'm going to align them to the bottom and hold down the Shift key and align them to the right. So one more time, I'm going to hit undo a bunch so we get back to our kind of like our starting state here. Let's say I have all these objects. Can select them. Command Option A, all selected. Let's center them out. Let's tidy them up, right? We're just using these little functions over here. I'll show you that one more time. So Command Option A, we're going to center them. We're going to tidy them. You'll see that they're all kind of matching up. Now we want to align them to the bottom right. If we choose bottom and right, they're going to align to themselves. We don't want that. So instead, we're going to hold down the Shift key. It'll change the way the alignment tool shows up. As I'm saying this, you see this highlighted. We're going to align them to the right. We're going to align them to the bottom. There they are. I can move them in unison and I can rotate them. Also, you'll notice preview and select matching layers. If you select an object on this frame and you want to see the matching objects on the other frames, I'm going to hold down the Shift key and you're going to notice a faint outline across them. And so when I click and drag, you'll notice that it's selecting everything. But if I click on this first one, I hold down the Shift key, and then I also hold down the, what is it? Shift key. There you go. If I hold down the Shift key and I hold down the Alt key, oh, it's not working for me. I'll cover that one in a bit, but basically it gives you an opportunity to edit them all. For now, I can just hold the Shift key, select them all. Let's head on over to multi-edit matching text layers. I can select this multi-edit highlight. I'm going to hit Command Option A. They're all selected. Now, if I want to change the text across them all, I just press Enter and I can change the text and it'll be updated across all of them. So I can say here, multi edit is awesome, right? And I've updated all of that matching text across all of these frames. How cool is that? I think it's awesome. All right. So, few things on making components. I know that auto layout is some of y'all's favorite shortcut. You'll notice that in this file, I've included a number of shortcuts that go with auto layout that can help you with your process. This isn't going to be a deep dive into auto layout, so I'll show you just a very basic concept. I'm going to draw a rectangle here, and I'm going to make a few of them. Let's say 1, 2, 3. When I select them all, I press Shift A. Shift A is going to place them into a frame. When auto layout frame is enabled, the objects inside are constantly going to be arranged according to its rules. So we could change our padding, right? We could change the padding or the spacing. We could change the padding on the outside. And this is very similar to how objects are arranged in HTML. I could change the direction. I can make them go up and down. I can make them go left and right. And now if I want to break the auto layout, I can hit the same thing, Command Shift G, and that'll actually break it out of the auto layout. And there are just 3 objects again. So select them all, Shift A, we have them in auto layout. They have this relationship where they are always in alignment. If I scale an object, it's going to constantly push the next one to the right of it. Auto layout is often used to create things that they can be, arranged and resized in a way, and you can maintain the spacing and some of these properties. So auto layout, Shift A to break an auto layout, right? I'm going to say Command Shift G because that'll break a group, it'll break a frame. Command Shift G is one of my favorite things for that. Couple things as well, traversing layers. When you're in Figma, you want to think about how you're navigating your layers, right? So same thing here. I'm going to bring this over. And let's say I'm working on a design, right? I have these different colors, these different objects, these different shapes, these different text layers, all these various things, and they're inside of a frame. I'm going to press the F key. I'm going to create a frame. Now you'll notice that these are nested inside of this frame. So I'm going to call this the parent, and I'm going to call these children. That's child, that's child 1. We got child 2. We have child 3. And we have child 3. I can select the children by pressing enter. They're all selected and I can move them. Let's say I want to go back and I select the parent, press shift enter, and now the parent's selected. So if I wanted to, if I had this object here and there's way, way more children, right? There's tons of children and I want to change all of their properties. So I can select the parent, I can press enter, selects all of the children, and then here I can make a change. Let's say I just want them all to be red. I can modify that. So now I'm deep, right? I've selected this object, but let's say I want to select its parent. Shift return, I've selected the parent and I can move. This is going to be super helpful when you're like working on auto layout designs. So if I press Shift A, this is automatically going to make this into auto layout. So here I'm in auto layout. The objects inside are all set to fixed values. If I wanted to change how each of these objects current resizing behaves, I can select the parent, press enter. It selects all of those child objects and I can change them all to fill container and fill container. And you can see that they will ultimately, let's add in, I think I broke that. It doesn't want to behave in that way. That's fine. I could change essentially how they work. And the reason is here we go. Let's set this to just a simple stack, right? So you have a stack of objects. I press enter and I could set them all to fill container. And when they're all set to fill container, they will grow to fill that container. I'm going to hit undo and just kind of go back to those stacks. Okay, making a component, not going to talk too much about components here, but basically if you create a graphic that you want to reuse, or you're making a button or a piece of UI that you're going to use again and again. Let's say here I make an icon and I want to make it into a component. I come up here, but if you're doing it frequently, Option Command K, that will Option Command K will make it into a component that'll put it into your assets folder. So here under keyboard shortcuts, I can see that object. I can create a bunch of instances, that can control the object, and change how those instances behave, even if the instances, have a different color or different properties associated with them, they can continue to be modified. But now if I want to break that, Option Command B, Option Command B. I know we're running short on some. Alex, do you mind if I take it another 5 minutes? Is that okay? Just respond in the
Definitely,
chat.
Miggy. You have some really great questions on that last slide, though, if you want to hit some of the Q&A.
Cool. All right, so I will just highlight that when you're prototyping, Shift E is going to swap between design and prototype mode. Somebody mentioned it earlier on. When you want to preview a prototype, let's say here I have an example prototype. I want to preview this. I can press Shift Space Bar and I can see the prototype preview. Let's say in prototype mode, I can change the prototype settings for this to have a device. So when I press Shift and Space Bar, we have a nice device there, and we can kind of preview and see how that prototype works. So you can even resize this, and not a shortcut, but one of my favorite things, you can follow active frame. So as you're working through a prototype, you can kind of see where you are at any given point in time. One of my favorite workflow shortcuts there. Also, when you're working in prototype mode, at any point, you can press Command Option Return to go into that full view prototype mode. When you press that Z key, it will change your zoom level. So pressing the Z key will change your zoom level, and then pressing Command and backslash will hide or show your Figma UI in your prototype mode. So once again, you can hide and show your Figma UI when you're prototype mode. So once again, Command Option or Control Alt Enter will take you into that full view prototype mode. You can press the Z key to change your zoom, and then Command backslash to show and hide the Figma UI. And last but not least, you can press the C key and leave comments in a prototype. So you could say, hey, I love this so much. And then I could even add an image. I'm just going to drop in a photo of coffee, say just like this coffee. And I'm going to leave a comment with a photo. You can leave a whole gallery of 5 photos, but that comment is now in that document. So when I head back here, I can see that comment. So don't underestimate pressing the C key for comments. Shift C will hide those comments and show them. Shift C, hide and view those comments. You click on them, you can see them. You can leave comments on the Figma canvas or the prototype. So let's head on over and see your questions. We got some questions here. Let's take a look at the questions. If I change the preferences in a file, will update in every new and existing file? Yes. When you change these preferences right here, consider that every file that you are working on for yourself. Those are your preferences, so it won't affect other people who are in your file. They have their own preferences. Okay, let's draw a little line through that with the pencil tool, Shift P. Can double clicking navigating works inside of frames for text and other layers? Let's take a quick look and see how that works. So in here, I can double click on that text. I could double click on this frame. Yes, it will work. It's going to navigate and zoom in to that object as you're navigating around. What needing to remove the pixel preview do we need to select? So pixel preview is global to your canvas. So turning on and turning off pixel preview, it's going to basically just happen canvas wide, and it's going to happen at that level. So right now pixel preview is turned on. I can then turn pixel preview off. So what scenario will you need the pixel preview? Let's say you're designing for a non-retina screen, or you could actually you want to see how text or an icon may render out as pixels. So let's say I'm working on a very small icon. I'm going to make a 24 pixel by 24 pixel icon here, and I draw in a circle, and I want to see how this circle, it's a vector circle, how it maps to pixels. So when I turn on show pixel preview, when I turn that on, you will actually see how that renders out. And the reason that that's important is sometimes when folks are making graphics, right, are making their icons, they want their icons to land on nice even pixels. If it doesn't, if it kind of moves a little bit off, so let's turn off snap to pixel grid. If it's not snapped on that pixel, you're going to see this aliasing that happens between that edge and those other ones. So when it's landing on a full and even pixel, it's nice and even, but when it doesn't, it's going to be off. So that's why a lot of people really like snap to pixel grid. And that's why people like show and hide pixel grid, or preview and pixel grid, show pixel preview, because it gives you a sense of what that looks like. Newer monitors are in retina, so they've actually have smaller pixels, so it's a little bit harder to see. But if you are a purist and you want to know how your objects render out when they became raster graphics or pixel based graphics, that's going to be the way for you to see that. Is there a reason why auto layout doesn't have shortcuts? It takes so much time to get to the menu to change from hug to fill, etc. Yes, they do have shortcuts. I just didn't cover them. So the auto layout shortcuts. So when you're switching hug to fill, right here, when you want to set hug contents, you could double click the vertical edge of an object. So if I have these two here, I press Shift A, right? This is currently set to hug. By dragging this out, it's now set to fix. By double clicking on that, the edge, it changes that frame to hug. Now, when you want to set to fill container, if you option double click on a vertical or horizontal edge, I could set those to fill container. So once again, these two objects inside of this fixed container, by option double clicking, will then set it to fill. So the answer is there's a ton of auto layout shortcuts, and the auto layout shortcuts can be found right here, and that will help you resolve those issues. That was a great question. Let's take a look. Snap function effects, just the file. Are we working on our whole Figma files? So it's going to be a general preview. Like as you're working on the file, you can turn it on and off. And that is the last question that we have today. Really appreciate y'all. Thank you so much for coming to our Figma for EDU workshop. Check out our other workshops. Let us know how we're doing. Alex is sharing in the chat a little file that gives you the ability to let us know how we're doing and what you would like to see in a future workshop. Once again, thank you so much for coming. I'm Miggy. Thank you, Alex. And I hope you have a wonderful weekend. And as always, happy designing.